Today we're working on the Mexican quilt. It is a king size quilt. If you check back in the history, you will see me putting together the blocks, the triangle blocks, and such. And what we're going to be doing today is, how exciting, we are going to be putting on the 2 rows of border all the way around it. And we're looking at this as being the second border. You've probably seen the video, or you can go back in the history and see the video of where I'm putting these pieces together. But we're now going to put these rows around 3 sides of the quilt. And our second border is going to be going right in between that border and the quilt itself, and it's going to be this red, white, and green, which is the Mexican flag. So I'm very excited. We are working on this. So the first thing we need to do is bring these over to the cutting board, go ahead and trim them, because we're going to have to put 3 of these strips together to make one side. So we're at the cutting table, and I do have our first border that we're going to put around the quilt. And now I need to trim up all of these strips and then sew them together, 3 of these to make one side. Because again, our quilt is a king size quilt. It is currently 91 by 93, and with the borders we're putting around 3 sides and the borders we're putting around 4 sides, it's going to end up being 102 by 109. So right now the backing I have is 108 by 108, so that's not going to work, but we're going to talk you through that as we go. And this white is going to be my binding, so we have already cut it off of the bolt of fabric. We're going to be taking it over to the ironing board and ironing that, but let's set that aside. Take a look at our strips and see how we need to trim them, because each of the lengths of fabric was a different size. So we want to make sure we're trimming off the selvage of the shortest piece. So we can do these 1 at a time or 2 at a time, whichever we prefer. Want to make sure that we get them perfectly lined up and straight. And then we're just going to pop them off and go on to the next. And I do have a long ruler. Don't need a long ruler. You do want to line one side up with the bottom and make sure that the top is even as well as we do this. And I'm going to be using my rotary blade. And these scraps I can use on another project. So I'm going to put those in a separate pile. We're going to hold on to those. And I will go ahead and trim off each of these. And then we'll be ready to go over to the ironing board and start our next step. Lining up, and this one is clearly not ironed right or not sewn right. Yeah, not ironed right. The green is overlapping. So let me take that back on over to the iron and press that properly before I sew it on. It's easier to handle as it's a small piece. Once you've sewn it on, you got to juggle the entire quilt instead of just the piece. And again, as you see, I'm cutting behind the selvage. And we have such a yummy stack of scraps to work with afterwards. Would be ashamed to throw those away. So we're going to have an upcoming project. Hit that subscribe button right now, and I'm going to show you how we can use all these little pieces in a beautiful fabric craft project. And here are our 4 inner borders, and we just have to sew these 3 pieces together to make the full length we need for the 10-inch, for the king size quilt. And we're going to lay right sides together and bring these over to the sewing machine. We're not sewing all these together, we're just sewing 3 together, 3 together, 3 together, 3 together. Okay, now we're deciding what thread we want to use. So we're looking at the Mexican flag, which is the red, the green, or the white. And hit down in comments below. Tell me what your thoughts are. I'd love to hear what thread color you would use out of these three to match your fabric. Okay, so for now we have our two strips that we're going to sew together for the binding. Borders. One of the borders, the inside border. So we have our red, white, and green. We want to face right side with right side, making sure red faces red, white faces white, green faces green. We're going to line up those seams, and these seams are actually ideal for me. We have one going one direction and one going the opposite direction, and our seams match perfectly right in between those, so we don't have much bulk. So I'm very excited about that. So let's go ahead and stitch these across. You can pop a pin in there if you want to hold them perfectly still, but I'm going to see if my fingers can work that magic and hold them perfectly still myself. And we did opt for the green thread. Why green? Well, I figured green, white, or red was just the same, and I had one bobbin with the green on it already. So, what did you put in the comments? What color would you use? The white, red, or green thread to do these pieces. Now, we're not going to trim each and every one of these away from the sewing machine as I go, but I did want to show you how this works. That one I'll have to press the correct direction the whole way. But see, we're sewing them across. Now you could do that catty corner line or a straight line depending upon how you want the overall look for your quilt. I'm just hoping that line doesn't get real close to one of the blocks. So we'll have to pay attention to that as we go. So we're going to go ahead and pull it down to one of the ends. We are sewing 3 of these together. So I'm pulling up my third piece, and we're going to lay it right together. Now all these seams are going the same direction, and I don't want to have to re-iron the entire piece, so I think we're going to keep it as such. And this is when you can pop your needle in it. If we were working with a lot of seams in the same place, yes, we would want them to really hook inside one another like the last piece did, just like so, and just like so. But we're going to let it go. And I really hate the yellow paint that I've been using. I apologize, it's on my nails. I was using spray paint, yellow. Maybe I'll run in and bleach my fingers and be right back. But let's go ahead and get this piece sewn up. And I just moved it all apart. So you want to make sure all of your corners are lined up, your seams are lined up, everything looks good before your first stitch. And just go ahead, use your 1/4 inch seams. I like to lock that stitch as I start, lock the stitch as I end, because again, I want my quilts to be huggable, lovable, washed and washed and washed and used for years and years and years to come. And we have taken several trips down to Mexico. So on Where Wendy Travels, you can see our Mexico destinations, where we have been, and why we want to make a Mexican quilt, just to make us happy when we look at it on the bed. Because again, it is a beautiful, beautiful water vacation destination. So we'll take this over to the iron, maybe press these seams open, press them. We'll see what we do when we get there. But let's go ahead and move this one away and do the other 3, because we do have this on 4 sides. And we're just going to go ahead and do this for each of our 4 sides. We need to turn right sides together. Make sure you're sewing it correctly. Green must go with green, white with white, red with red. Line them up. Sorry if that's too close. And sew them across. And sometimes you got to fumble. It is very long pieces, so make sure you have the bulk of the weight up on the table in the correct direction so it doesn't pull your pieces too much, so you're not lined up properly. Make sure your seams are the directions you want them to be. And then we can just grab the next piece and start it. Just grab the body of them, put them off to the side so they're not pulling too much. And all of our pieces are done. We're over at the ironing board. We're letting the iron heat up to our cotton hottest setting, making sure we have a little water in there to get some steam, and we're going to do those sides. Okay, so we're at the ironing board. We want to go ahead and press down our seams. We can do it open, we can do it to the side, and as you see, looks like I didn't do that great of a job pressing in the past, as I probably pressed on one side, turn it over, it changed, and then we redid it. So just a quick little touch up where we need to on the other fabrics. And the steam makes very quick work of it. We just don't want to press the underlying fabric a direction we don't want it to be in. So our next move is to go ahead and lay the king size quilt out to where we're starting with one edge, and we're going to go ahead and go all the way to the bottom, and we got to work the weight to where it's on our table and in our lap, and that way it's not going to be torquing or pulling too much as we sew. So we have this whole end lined up and ready to add our first border. We're taking our border side, deciding which side is going to go against our quilt. We could have the red going away or the red going towards. So we've got to think, okay, the Mexican flag, let's take a look at the Mexican flag. And it is important which way the green, white, and red goes on. On the Mexican flag, the green is always going to be to the left-hand side as you look at it, then the white and the red. So we're putting the green against the quilt. Now it's going to come around the quilt and go the opposite side. But the green is always going to be towards the quilt as you look at it. And we typically look at the green first. So we're going to add the green to the quilt top to start with. And we're lining up these pieces, and we're just going to sew about 2 inches, readjust, sew another 2 inches, readjust, sew another 2 inches. And we're going to do that for all 3 sides. Just when I started, I did backstitch that. I'm also not sure, my friends, what the best view is for the sewing, for you watching the sewing machine. Can you put down in comments any thoughts on which you would like to see first? And I've also been told that you guys always want to see my face in the video. So from the comments, in the comments, if you could put if that's a vital thing for you watching the video, if you'd like to see it from the opposite angle, seeing me maneuver the quilt and put it in the sewing machine instead of having this closer view of the sewing machine. Obviously, I'm trying to flip the camera different ways so you can see better, because sometimes we want to see a different aspect than what we're watching on TV or on YouTube. So let me know. Inquiring minds want to know. So what are y'all working on? Do you have an upcoming project? Are you working on something now? I would love to know what's in your sewing machine or your crafting table, or what project you'd like to start on next. And as you see, we need to keep adjusting the quilt. I'm pulling the underside from here, pulling the top from here. So you see each time it is adjusting because I want them laying perfectly together. And we do about 2 to 4 inches and then readjust. I'm working with my finger underneath the quilt to make sure that to try to make sure that the underneath, which is ironed, goes the correct direction. So some of these are split, some of these are going up, some of these are going down, because we do have different pieces we're working with. So excited. I cannot wait to throw this up on the bed and let you see the complete top with the 2 borders. And due to the size and length of the quilt, I've opted to put the next outside border just on 3 sides. So when that comes, I'm going to ask you to tell me what you think, if you think I need it on all 4 sides, or if I'm good on just the 3 sides, because my king size quilt is getting rather king size quilt. And it's great to cover the top of the bed. But looking at the 110 plus, we're drooping over the sides. Starting to. So let me know your thoughts in the comments when we get to that section, because that is something I'm still debating. And at the corners, we could put cornerstones. So far, I'm just thinking on putting this. I'm debating a mitered corner on the corner, so I might do a mitered corner or I might not. Let me know your thoughts on that as well. And on the edges, if you have not trimmed your full quilt, you want to make sure that you are going with the shortest piece of your top that you have. And that's why sometimes you're going to see the white and not see the white, because you see here it's off like a 1/16 of an inch. Could have been trimmed and wasn't. sometimes this monster quilt wants to get away from you, so make sure the bulk of the weight is up on the table and it's not pulling and torquing the part that you're sewing very much at all. And to help me hold some of the bulk of the weight, you see that I have my magnifying glass here, which is really working as another arm for me and helping me keep the quilt from pulling too much. But again, you want the bulk of your quilt up and on the table so it's not torquing as you sew. And we're going around the next corner. So excited to be getting this Mexican quilt ready for the long arm. This border and one more border, and we're ready to go. Guess what? I think I just hit a record for the longest time I have sewn without bobbin thread. So hit down in the comments below. I would love to hear what is the longest stretch you have ever sewn with no bobbin thread once you've run out. Curiosity. And we're coming up on the end. Whoopsie. Go real slow. Slow is accurate. Accurate is slow. Make sure you stay right on your 1/4 inch or close to. And we're right at the end. And we can trim our thread, bring it over to our cutting board, and trim that length off. Very exciting. And now, my friends, that we have the outside border on our quilt, it is time to come over to the ironing board and press all of my seams. So we are going to put you on a tripod and we're going to press some seams, and then we'll be back to sew on the second border. Because we cannot put this on the long arm or do the next step without pressing, and pressing makes it so much easier for pressing the outside border once we get that on. So step by step, everyone gets pressed. Okay, my friends, now that we have the outside borders on, we have it pressed, it's time to go ahead and add our second outside border. So I'm very excited about this piece. This piece has the beautiful stars in it. So we are going to go ahead and add that on and then decide if we need a third border before we press and go to the long arm. Yay! This quilt is really coming together, so I cannot wait to get this border on, hang it up, and let you see it. And we have our straight stitch. We're working with the Singer Heavy Duty continuously, and we've got our stitch length on a 2. And we're going to have to go ahead and watch these seams real carefully as we put this on. So we're going to go real slow on this piece. And we also need to make sure the bulk of the weight is on the table. It's not pulling and torquing, and we get started very smoothly here. So I'm going to put this border in my lap, and I'm going to stretch this piece out so we've got a little bit straight. I'm going to line it up with the top, and we're going to begin to stitch by locking it in. We're keeping those 1/4 inch seams. And we're watching our seams right up at the top to make sure they're correct. And then the rest of our seams are going to face us, so it's going to be much easier on this piece going around. So let's get those laying flat. Again, making sure our weight is not pulling us. And we're putting this border on 3 sides. We're leaving it off the top. And that is one of the main considerations for making a third border that is just maybe a 2.5 inch strip, a 3 inch strip, maybe, and that would be a border. And then we'd put it on the long arm for quilting. And then once we're quilted, then we would add the binding. And that binding is the 2 inch or the 2.5 inch that you have folded over, sewn all the pieces together, folded over, pressed, and then you put on one side, turn around, and put on the opposite side for a smooth closure. And again, the hardest part about this process is the weight of the quilt. We're working with a king size quilt, so we've got that bulk and that weight that we're juggling so it does not pull away. And since I'm not using pins, I have to make sure these 2 sides are lining up perfectly. So that is the challenge with the bulk of the weight. Now what you might want to do is lay this quilt out on a clean floor, or what I like to do, lay it out on a king size bed and pin these pieces on and then bring them over to the sewing machine to sew them. We're getting those stitches in. We're going down the first side. We have 2 more sides to go. And again, this project is really coming together. Oh, and another thing you might want to do, you see my needle is up. I don't have the controls on the Singer Heavy Duty to keep it in the needle down position. That's something you might want to do so that if you walk away or you accidentally have it pulled or tugged in any direction, it doesn't come out from the spot that you're sewing. So a needle down is a good idea to have when you're doing a large project like this as well. Constant battle. Haha, almost done with the first side. So sweet. Okay, and we're up to the first row. We've locked the stitch, and I'm going to trim it and pull it out and let you see how beautiful that corner has turned out. Let me see if I can back you up at all so you can actually see what I'm trying to get you to see. So we have the first corner complete. So I'm excited. All right, let's go down the second side and then we'll go down the bottom. Okay, we've laid it out. Let's grab the other piece and then we will put it right here. I've decided to start at the bottom, so I'm upside down now to put this piece on, and then we'll go across the bottom when we have both sides done of the king size quilt. We'll go across the bottom. And I am so excited. We did the other one with the white and the green, ending up the entire beautiful row with the green and then the white. So we're doing the same on this side. So I'm excited. Let's go ahead and match them together, right sides together, and begin sewing our second side. And we're doing the same thing here that we did on the other side. So have you ever made a king size quilt? Have you ever sent a quilt to a long armor? Or do you quilt and you use your domestic machine from start to finish? I would love to know what kind of a quilter you are, what kind of tutorials you'd like to see. So hit that comment button. I'd love to have a comment from you, even if it's just to say hello. Maybe even what's your favorite beverage. I like my light coffee in the morning. I do take cream and sugar. I've been using a sugar substitute for several years now. And my choice of drink during the day is Earl Grey and Lady Grey. Have you ever tried either of those? And what's your favorite tea? What's your favorite coffee? I'm curious. And maybe, my friends, do tell me, how do you diet? I need to lose a few pounds. So if you've got a great idea, please hit that comment button. Give me your suggestions, what works for you, maybe even what doesn't work for you. Because I'm now going to start limiting my carbs and seeing if that helps. Because I'm not a candy person. I love my cakes and my breads. And that may be my problem. Don't have many cakes, but I do take the occasional cinnamon roll or the biscottis or different bread-like yumminesses throughout the course of a week. So I've got to cut down on that. And increase my walking. What kind of exercise do you do? Going to start some low impact. Maybe even some more hiking. I get winded easy up in the mountains when I hike. So to me, that means I probably need to do more of it. What do you think? And my friends, what I really want to do is hear from you. So if you haven't yet, hit that like button, give me a comment, hit subscribe if you like what I do or you'd like to see me do different. I would still love you as a subscriber as we go through our sewing journey. And maybe we both increase our knowledge and skills and have so much fun doing it. What do you think? Okay, so we have our 2 side rows on, and now we're going to go ahead and across the bottom put on our row. We're going to start with the white and go into the red. So let's go ahead and turn on the sewing machine and start sewing. And we're matching our white to our white. And we're going to keep our 1/4 inch seams, locking our stitch as we start and making sure our seams are going to lay properly. Put our row in our lap that we're sewing on. I'm telling you, this quilt is looking so beautiful. All right, my friends, we do have our two borders on, our Mexican flag border and our border pinwheel with white squares. We have that going around the quilt. It is a king size quilt, so we're looking at a queen size bed, so it's rather large if you can see this. But I am so excited. I think that Mexican flag line there really, really sets the quilt off. And I am looking at a gorgeous quilt. Hard to really see. Let's lift this side up, put it on the bed so you can see it. I am just loving this. So we are going to take it to the iron. We are going to press it. And our beautiful Mexican quilt is ready for the long arm. So I hope you have enjoyed the process of adding the borders to this magnificent quilt. I hope that you will be inspired to make a quilt. Go back through, see my tutorials on how I use the pinwheels, which are just half square triangles. I have to trim some threads, and they're going around picture blocks, and then I have the full pinwheel in here as well. So go back, look through my tutorials, enjoy my quilt videos, and I hope you will enjoy this one as well on the long arm, and then eventually on the actual king size bed. So thanks again. Please hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you back here real soon. Have a great day, my friends. Thank you. Bye. And now to press our binding for the entire quilt. We have selected this beautiful white on white, and we're going to select which side is right side up, which side is wrong side up, and we're going to go ahead and fold it in half and press it the entire amount that we need. So we're ready for our binding.